Alright, so first we're going to be talking about a play of some sense. It has 4 scenes in it, 3 of which are original pieces, and then the 4th is kind of a collaboration of all the characters that are in the entire play together, reading off moments from their different scenes and explaining how it's all kind of connected in the messages that they're all trying to push. In the first scene, we have the male and the female characters. The male character is the first scene is about it, what we all want, the it that we are driven to try to acquire. At least was my idea when I wrote it. What's great about abstract writing or absurd writing is that it allows for a lot of great interpretations from different people, but that was my interpretation when I wrote the thing in the first place. I wrote a play of some sense with no thought process in mind as to what I wanted moment to moment. I just wrote it, and what came out came out. Put my fingers to the computer and just wrote a short play in one sitting. And in the first scene, we have the male and the female. The male is sitting on a desk, and he's waiting for the egg to basically incubate under him, to wait for it to be ready for him to be able to present to her, because he's waiting for love, and he's hoping that she can be that love, but he keeps waiting and waiting and waiting, never trying for it. She is a workaholic who's trying to get to that promotion, who's trying to get that position at work that's really great, and she keeps working and working really hard, and she's on track and everything. During the scene, they interact with each other through repetition at times, and through vague statements towards each other that kind of leave you to be able to come up with your interpretation of what they're really talking about. She gets a call from a higher up, from a boss, and is told that she got the promotion that she wants. All she has to do is say that she accepts it. And right in that moment, while she's planning to accept this, the guy in the scene distracts her with the egg that he finally decides he's going to present to her. It's strange looking though, and when she gets it, she smushes it in her hand because of its softness and everything, and ends up breaking the egg, and green goo comes out, and she's all grossed out. And so neither of them get what they want, because in her moment of distraction by this egg, the higher up just says, okay, you waited too long, never mind. And they're both left in this moment without what they want, without it. And the moral of that story is that you never get it. You always want it, and then by the time you get it, something else is now your it, or something beyond that is now your it. In the second scene, we have 3 women that are on the stage together in their own separate little spots, and they're in black, except they all have a pink circle on their stomach, and then one of them's new to the environment. One of them's been there for quite a long time, and another one's been there even longer. And the one who's been there the longest has lost its mind and just screams. The one that's been there a long time is always telling the new one, oh, you'll get used to it, you'll be able to move on, you'll be able to deal with it eventually. It's not so bad after you get used to it. It's the becoming entrenched in whatever bad thing you have to get used to. And then the new one can't get used to it in the time that you meet her in. She talks about the food being nice at first, but then she realizes it's kind of boring because it's the same thing every day, every meal. She realizes that she's sleeping in her own poop. She can't see sunlight. Like, she doesn't have a day that she can get used to, and then she gets sexually assaulted by getting artificially inseminated. She gets her tail cut off, and her son, who is born, gets taken from her and is taken off to go and become veal. And it's tragic, and it's talking about factory farming, but I wanted to present it with just these three women on the stage without saying, hey, you're in a factory farm. I want the audience to understand that they're going through an experience that is traumatic and painful for these three women, and then you realize that these three women are three female cows, and it's awful. And there's an analogy there to make between society and what society does to women, and the lack of control that is given to women over their own bodies and over their own lives. That's really the human aspect of the scene is that. And then there's also my animal rights message that I care about a lot inside both of those, both the feministic aspect of it and the animalistic aspect of it. Both of those matter a lot to me, and so that's what the second scene is all about. And then in the third scene we've got three people who are somewhat older, and they're all reaching the end of their life, and one of them is a woman who's waiting for a sign from whether it's God or something. She's just waiting for a sign to let her know what is going to be waiting for her for when she dies. And then there's a man in the scene. He's angry about life and death. That's a little bit of me is in his character, just the fear of the unknown, fear that you're going to die and cease to be. And so he's bitter now that he's near the end of his life because he doesn't want to die, and he's angry about that idea. And then the third woman, the second woman in the scene, she just keeps saying, I see it, and she's referring to life, any form of life that is in front of her, whether it's the trees outside or a bug on the windowsill or the people in the room. Just life is the miracle that she continues to witness. So all she says is, I see it, and she's happy for that. And Susan is kind of anxious because she's worried about the afterlife and what's going to be there for her. And literal signs fall around her and she doesn't see them. And then she goes to sleep and she asks the guy to please wait. And if he sees a sign to wake her up and let her know that there was one, she goes to sleep and then she dies leaning up against him. And then he gets angry towards whatever might be out there because he just felt it was unfair for her to not get a sign, because that's all she ever wanted. And then a nurse comes in. Nope, Fizzy, you gotta stay over there. Here, I'll pet you. And a nurse comes in and puts a potted plant on the table, and in his throes of anger, he hears the second woman say, I see it, and she's referring to the plant, but he doesn't get it, and so he gets angry, he kicks the plant over, falls on the ground, and cracks the pot, and then she climbs out of bed and like drops onto the floor and starts trying to like fix the plant because it's all toppled over and damaged and everything and hurt. And so she's trying to like pick up the dirt and like rearrange the plant so it can sit there comfortably. And then she refers to "I saw it" when she's like talking about the woman that just passed away in the bed next to him. And he finally starts like coming to grips with what she's talking about. And the moral of the third story is that life is that miracle, and whether we have something that occurs when we die, whether something is there when we die or not, whether there is an afterlife or not, that life is a beautiful miracle for existing, especially in space where we seem to be such a rare thing. Like I mean all life, not just humans, but everything that's alive on this planet seems to be such a rare thing. And it's a miracle, and it's beautiful in all of its terrible aspects and it's all of its good aspects as well. And so she just says, "I see it," because she sees the miracle. She's living in the moment instead of dwelling on the past life that you've lived, or by dwelling on the future afterlife that you hope for. The other woman is just trying to tell you that live your life, and when it's all over, well, you had your miracle. And then the fourth scene is just all of them together speaking as one, collectively, and really trying to drill home like what the message is inside of all the scenes. And then it says at the end the whole line about a play of some sense, so you come to understand that I'm saying that it's all ridiculous. It's all absurd, everything that I'm talking about. And it's okay to laugh and enjoy, be entertained. But every once in a while, you got to take things a little bit seriously too, and like receive the message and grow with that. So that's a play of some sense. All right, so now we're talking about Where the Sows Cry. We have the man character, who is the older version of the boy. You're never really told whether man is a ghost of the boy or just the grown-up of the boy. You just know that he is the older version of the boy, but you're never really given the information as to his fate. Then we have the boy, the main character inside the story, who lives near a pig factory farm, and by the end of the play can't stand it anymore, goes into the pig farm, and he liberates and saves all of these pigs by killing them with a knife. He kind of loses his mind, and he doesn't really see a way out for the pigs other than death. Then we've got Julia, who is the boy's mother. She's distant and somewhat cold, and never really had a good connection with her son. Then we have Greg, who is the boy's father, who's angry about the farm, but on a much more selfish level of just saying that it makes the water gross and it's disgusting, it smells, other things like that, but not upset about it from a moral standpoint. The boy is the one who's more tormented by the sounds because he hears suffering. He doesn't hear something disgusting. He doesn't hear something that just bothers him or see something that's gross. It's tormentful for him to listen to it. Then we've got Andy, who is the boyfriend of the boy, and they really care about each other, and Andy wants to help the boy get better, like to feel better, to not be suffering so much. And he asked the boy to come over so then they can spend some time together. And the boy agrees, but he had other plans. He was planning on going to the farm. And then at the end of the play, the boy goes to the factory farm, and you hear the voice of the boy and the man talking about the terrible things about this place. And they describe how these women and these children, who are the pigs in the factory farm, come to him, and they're pleading for some type of salvation, and he kills them. And then by the end of the play, you're left with the boy's voice just saying, "Nothing can help them, nothing help them, nothing help them, nothing help me, nothing can help me, nothing." So it's a dark tale, and it deals with content that sometimes I feel when it pertains to the boy and the man. So when it comes to this play, it's supposed to be surreal, and it's supposed to be expressionistic. I think it's supposed to be more expressive. It's less rooted in reality and more feeling. So definitely expressionism and surrealism are being two tools inside of this play. And so we're not looking for realism in the sense of everybody acting like truly natural characters. We're going for trying to inspire a feeling in people through the different characters. And the dance numbers that are in it are once again inspired by feeling as well. The first one with his mother is about how she can't connect with him, how she never really showed him any type of physical care, never breastfed him. He feels very like distant from his mother because of that. And then the dance with the pigs is very less of a dance and more of just movement with each other, and the pigs coming together and surrounding him until eventually he raises one up amongst them to be able to kill them, and then it all goes dark. And then the boy and Andy have a dance together that is more playful, and they keep separating, coming together, and it's relaxing and comforting. And so you get the idea that Andy is a source of comfort for the boy. And that's it for the different dances that exist. And yeah, that's where the Sows Cry. All right, Shards of Me. This play was actually inspired by a student that I worked with some years ago who has borderline personality disorder, and that experience led me to write this. There's the counselor, who is a consistent figure in Rachel's life. The counselor is trying to talk Rachel through their experiences and talk them through their feelings, so then they can come to a point of comfort in themselves, and to help them learn to deal with their own mental anguishes, and to learn proper mental techniques for dealing with their own personal challenges. Then we've got Rachel, who is the main character, who's the one going through these experiences and suffering greatly. Surprise, if you haven't read it yet, well, that's your fault because it's been a while. all these other characters are Rachel. All the minor parts that are in this that keep coming in, they're all Rachel. And this play is representing borderline personality disorder by trying to help the everyday person understand how borderline works by looking at it through the eyes of many different people. I'm not saying that people with borderline personality disorder have multiple personalities. I'm not saying that they click in and out of different minds. They don't. It's just the extreme nature of borderline personality disorder where somebody's obsession can become something that they hate, and that's normal for somebody with BPD. Is that they care greatly about something until something else comes along that they end up connecting to, and then that becomes their new big thing. They have a hard time consistently holding on to caring about something. And so I wanted to help people understand that by showing completely different people with very different emotions and very different experiences. And that's Rachel finding different things to care about, different emotional avenues that they end up going down. So that's Rachel, and we most of the time see Rachel in their room, and they're dealing with their own inner turmoil. Then we've got Margaret, who is innocent and childish and gets physically taken advantage of by John and Matt, who are two people that Margaret knows, and she hangs out at their house. They get her drunk, and then they physically take advantage of her, but you don't really see the full thing happen. But you understand what occurs. And so that's kind of that loss of innocence and wanting to be that child. And then in the third scene, we meet Phil, who is very much infatuated with another girl. And Phil cares greatly for love and is obsessed with the concept of love. And that care for love is like all that drives Phil. And Phil gets connected with a character named Mary. Mary is a girl who goes to the same school as Phil, and Phil tries to ask Mary out, and Mary rejects him and completely, in very vicious words, says, like, how could I ever be with you? Like, you understand at the end, Mary is disgusted by a female asking her out because Phil is just an aspect of Rachel. Phil is one of the extreme points of Rachel's life, and so Mary is disgusted by a girl asking her out, not by just Phil asking her out. But you see it from the point of view of Phil. Then we've got Rachel's parent, who is a voice constantly there trying to speak with Rachel until the end, when you actually see the parent talking with the counselor. And when the parent is talking to the counselor later on in the play, that is once again another aspect of Rachel. The parent's voice is the actual parent, but the parent that we meet is how Rachel sees her parent. And then we've got Michelle, who is hateful, bitter, angry at things, very much is disconnecting from everything except for pain, and gets involved with drugs and alcohol, that type of stuff, and ends up using John in a sexual nature. And so you understand John is one of the people that physically took advantage of Margaret, who is Rachel. Michelle is now taking that abuse and projecting it back onto John by being with John. And you see that pain that Rachel is going through because of that. Then in scene 6, we meet Jordan, who is prideful and is about sports. trying to be a jock, trying to be part of the in crowd, trying to be cool. And Jordan gets accosted by a friend named Nikki, who is angry at Jordan for turning down Chris to go to a movie with him. Chris thought that Rachel was asking him out to go and see a movie, so he thought he was going on a date, but got rejected, got stood up, and is hurt because he thought this girl was asking him out, but Jordan wasn't. Jordan's just messing with Chris. And then Nikki, who is Chris's friend, yells at Jordan, who is Rachel, about standing him up. And Jordan ends up pushing Nikki down a set of stairs, just out of anger. Then in scene 7, we meet the parent who is talking about their child and how they're scared. And then in scene 8, we see Rachel with the counselor. And then we see Rachel alone in her room with a shattered piece of mirror that she broke. Oh, I missed that part. Rachel broke a mirror at the beginning of the play, and then those shards fell on the ground, and then each one of the new people has a shard of glass in their hand that you don't see, and then at the end of the play they all hand a shard back to Rachel, and the idea is that they are each one of these shards. They are each an aspect of her. There's something that she cares about, but she's just fragmenting herself in these extremes rather than being the collective whole that she is. And each one of those characters comes and says, brings that to Rachel until Rachel has the whole mirror together again and feels some type of comfort from it, and the counselor tries giving her some final words about being comforted by all that. So that's the whole play. It's very disjointed in a sense that I think it'll fit really well with this style of theater where it's just character back and forth through these videos. So I'm very excited to see this one in this format. Alright, I'm going to quickly try to go over the characters of Through Kern's Eyes and then talk through the story. Well, the synopsis of the story is that a girl named Erica is moving into a new house in the woods with her stepfather and her sister. She gets lost in the woods one day. She finds her way into a magical land where dwarves and fairies and all those other types of spirits exist. She becomes friends with this being called Cern, who is based off of the pagan god Cernunnos. And she learns about this thing that exists here, that is this darkness that is consuming the fairy world, and learns that it is the physical manifestation of human consumption and industrialization. And so it's all of our destructive natures given a physical, spiritual form. And she learns that this being called Morg, who is based off of the Celtic pagan goddess, the Morrigan. And so she learns about this being and how she is helping this dark essence grow inside the fairy world, because she's hoping for it to consume all life and to destroy everything, so then she can kind of start over, because she has lost hope in humanity. Kern hopes to rekindle that hope in Morg by bringing this girl Erica into the fairy world to try to help and to show Morg hope. And he fails, because Erica is representing humanity, and I don't find a lot of hope in humanity, and Erica represents that, and she gives up. She, near the end of the play, she tries to go to Morgue. She tries to talk to her, to try to be hopeful for her, but she's just too scared. She's too afraid to confront Morgue and to try to talk with her and to even touch her. She's just too afraid to change and to make change occur. And so by the end of the play, Cern sends Erica back to our world with a message that he loves her and that he hopes that she can find hope somewhere, and he sacrifices himself and dies, allowing the darkness to consume him rather than her while he's sending her home. And she, at the end of the play, realizes that she's alone, that humanity doesn't have a god or gods or spirits that are looking out for us, that are going to make sure that everything's going to be perfect. There's nothing out there that's watching over us and making sure that we're going to be okay. There's no god that's saying, I'm going to make sure the asteroid doesn't hit the planet. There's no god saying, I'm going to make sure humans don't starve themselves out by overpopulating the planet. There is no god saying that that it will take care of everything for us. This story is not saying that gods don't exist. This story is not saying that God doesn't exist or that whatever you believe in doesn't exist. It's saying that it is not there backing you up, making sure that everything is going to be just fine. That is completely on us. That's my point of view on it. And Erica realizes this at the end and says, like, I'm going to try now. Because now that I'm truly alone, because you're gone, Cern, and Morgue is gone, and like all the spirits that I knew are gone. Most characters in the story die by the end of the play, and she's alone with humanity, and she needs to do something now. So then, out of characters, there's Erica. I've talked about her. There's Jim, who is Erica's stepfather, and he's a very kind person. He married Erica's mother. Erica's mother died of cancer, and Jim was left with Jewel and Erica to take care of, and he stuck with them. And he's a very good person, and he's just trying to make things okay. There's Jewel, who is Erica's older sister. She's a little bit more distant than the others about stuff. I think Erica is more going out and doing things to try to find comfort in what occurred to her, whereas Jewel is a little bit more reserved and kind of hurting on the inside. Then we've got Ian, who is Erica's dog, who's played by a person, because Ian ends up being able to walk around on two legs and to actually talk and stuff when in the fairy world. So he's played by a person. He's sacrificial, and he really cares about Erica. He ends up dying at the hands of the Wendigo in order to protect Erica. So we've got Telk, who's a pixie without wings. She's bitter and cold towards humans. She's very angry about it and is very good at expressing that anger towards Erica and towards others. Then we've got Lucas, who is Erica's past best friend. We see him only briefly, and Erica really misses Lucas. We've got Geocelod, who is a dwarf, and he is the first being inside of the Fey world that Erica meets, and he kind of takes her under his wing and brings Erica to his home to introduce him to his husband Flint, who is another dwarf, and the two of them end up singing Erica and Ian to sleep, and just treat them very well, and they kind of wander with Erica wherever she goes and kind of helps and takes care of her. Then we've got Moss, who is literally a pile of moss. And he's awesome. And he, once again, is another being that Erica meets early on, follows her around everywhere, and he dies for her. And then we've got Okor, Tyr, and Pelf, who are the three fairies that are inside the Seelie court that shows up at one point and talks to Erica and doesn't like her because it's a human and they're unconcerned with her and want her to go away. Then we've got Jack and Hex, who are both kind of leading the Unseelie court. And Jack is a scarecrow who has a pumpkin head on top of his head, and he's kind of malicious and vicious and wanting to see Erica get hurt, but doesn't get what he wants. And Hex is a hag witch who has bones all over her and feathers and stuff like that. And she and Jack try to pull Erica away to go and make her become part of the Unseelie court, which is part of their lore as the Unseelie court. Then we've got a bunch of goblins that are part of the Unseelie court with Jack and Hex, and they're just traveling with the Unseelie court, and they want to hurt Erica, and they're kind of opposed to the Seelie court fae, but they don't fight necessarily. They're just in opposition of each other. Then we've got Cern, who he speaks entirely in rhyme, and he represents the pagan god, Celtic pagan god Cernunnos, who was a being that had like stag horns, and in this story he's a god of the wild and of everything that isn't civilized, and of the sun. Like that was one aspect that I kind of gave him, was sun and light. Then we've got the Wendigo, who is a dark, evil, cannibalistic spirit, and he is the biological father of Erica, who got lost in a winter storm years ago and became a Wendigo because of cannibalism. And he actually realizes that partway through the story and ends up trying to help Erica in the end. Erica was sexually abused by her father, and that's part of the dynamic that you end up finding out about inside the story between them when it comes to memories that come back to the Wendigo from his human life, and he hates what he once was just as much as he learns to not want to be what he is now. There's the darkness, which is just a mob of people in dark fabric and everything, representing that consumption and that overwhelming nature of our industrialization given physical form. Then we got Morg, who is the mother goddess, in the form of the Morrigan, who is a vengeful war goddess that is not on anybody's side, just on Bloodshed's side, and she is in that state right now, looking to destroy humanity and to start over. Then we've got Reef, who is a mermaid that speaks to Erica and tries getting her under the water. Then we've got the mermaids themselves, who there's a group of them that sing to Erica when they're trying to lure her in. And then we've got Jenny Greenteeth, who is a specific fairy in folklore, who was a fairy that drowned children. She would linger in pools of water, like near the surface, and wait for a child to walk by, and she would grab them by the leg and pull them under. Then we've got Thorn, Bark, and Ash, who are all dryads, and they are protectors of the elder, who is the ghost of an elder tree. The elder tree died, and the stump is now projecting this ghost out, and it's called Elder. And the three dryads are looking after, and the elder speaks to Erica. Then we've got Hyrod, who is an troll or an ogre. He's a troll, I believe. And he shows up, and he's been getting consumed by this darkness, by the spirit. And the darkness is in him now, and it's starting to consume him, and it'll eventually envelop him and turn him into more of the darkness. And but he fights for Erica and for the rest of the spirits when a battle occurs between them and the darkness, and he fights as long as he can against the darkness until it eventually does consume him. So those are the characters, and it's a very fantastical play. I wrote it because there's not a lot of modern pagan folklore. There's lots of folklore for like lots of different denominations and faiths, but none for really paganism. Not a lot of modern stories to tell that are pagan, and so I wanted to create one, and so I wrote Through Cern's Eyes. All right, last but not least, we've got Dracula. So we've got Harker, who is Jonathan Harker. That he goes to help this person named Dracula, Count Dracula, to set up a home that he wants to move to in London. And during his time in the castle, he eventually goes a little crazy in the realization that Dracula is a monster and tries to escape, and does finally escape, and gets back to London, and then helps Van Helsing and the others to eventually destroy Dracula. He is the lover and husband of Mina. Then we've got Dracula, who is a monster. In the book, Dracula's a monster. Dracula isn't some overly romantic, beautiful being who wants to win Mina's heart so then they can live eternally together. He's a monster, and he's obsessed with the idea of consuming other beings' life, and to be immortal and to be powerful. His whole bag is about power and destruction and all that type of stuff. Dracula is not a romantic, like a lot of modern stuff likes to portray Dracula as, because, that sells. But Dracula isn't that. Dracula's a monster. Then we have an elderly lady who ends up giving Jonathan Harker at the beginning of the story I believe it's either a rosary or a cross to help protect him, because she's superstitious of the being Dracula who lives in the castle nearby. Then we've got the coachman, who is just a random coachman that is transporting Jonathan Harker to the castle. We've got the other coachman, who is Dracula himself, bringing Harker to the castle once he gets picked up from the original coachman. Then we've got the three brides of Dracula, who are a little bit more than animals when it comes to them being in the castle. They're just hungry and want more people. And they are given a baby by Dracula at one point in the story, and they die at the end of the play. A woman's voice, that's the mother of the baby, who Dracula took a baby from in a local village that then gets eaten by wolves, and the brides. Then we've got Mina, who is the wife of Jonathan Harker, and kind of the main character of the story, who is dealing with her friend Lucy, who starts to go a little bit crazy, and she ends up becoming a vampire, Lucy does, and they end up killing Lucy because of that, and Mina is kind of narrating through all of this, and then she becomes the target of Dracula, and so you end up, a lot of attention is on her, while others are kind of waiting for Dracula and hoping to get Dracula before he gets her. And then we've got Lucy, who is White Swan and Black Swan, as we talked about it last time we did this play. She's naive and kind of childish and flirtatious with the three different suitors that she has, and then ends up becoming a vampire and becomes very seductive and powerful. So there's like the white side of her and the dark side of her, Black Swan. And so Lucy ends up dying at the hands of her suitors and Van Helsing. And we've got Seward, who is running a mental asylum, and he's one of the suitors of Lucy. And he uses drugs as a way to cope with the fact that he can't be with Lucy. Then we've got Morris, who is a cowboy from America who is a suitor of Lucy and very honorable, and he dies at the end of the play during the battle with Dracula. Then we've got Homewood, who is the one that actually ends up with Lucy before Lucy becomes a vampire and they end up having to kill her anyways. And he's just a rich guy, and he ends up winning Lucy's heart. And then we've got Renfield, who is insane and is like a ghoul of Dracula, and he ends up serving Dracula, and over the course of the play you learn more about Dracula kind of through Seward observing Renfield. Renfield is very physically powerful, and he's kind of driven by the power of Dracula, and then when he doesn't get what he wants from Dracula, he tries to fight Dracula and sort of starts to win, and because he's so strong, and then Dracula is able to like hypnotize him, and then he breaks Renfield's neck. Then there's the Log, who is like the captain of a ship that was transporting Dracula in his box with sand. And he's going over the log of Dracula getting to London, and how there's a monster on board and it's killing people and all this other type. It's a really cool like short story inside of the book. And then a mate who is killed by Dracula or jumps overboard rather than being killed by Dracula. Then we've got Van Helsing, who is a doctor who has come to help with Lucy and then finds out about Dracula, and then he's like, okay, well, we're gonna go kill Dracula, and he's like the main like fighter against Dracula. Then we've got Miss Westenra, who is Lucy's mother, and she like falls unconscious at one point during the play because of a bunch of stuff going on. Then we've got an attendant who is the attendant of Renfield, like one of the people working at the asylum. So in the story, you'll notice dialogue that is narration versus dialogue that is speech. And you can tell that difference by... Let me open up the script. You can tell the difference because if the dialogue or the line is not in bold, then that's narration. If the line is in bold, then that means it's being spoken by a character. And so narration, you only need to record the audio. You can still do it as video, and then I can just cut the video out and just keep the audio. But the main goal of the pieces that are not bold is that you read them as narration, and then you record yourself doing physical blocking to that narration. So that's what we're looking for when it comes to the difference in those two. So not bold, narration that you still need to record audio for, and then you need to give me the physical blocking that goes along with that narration. You need to time those out. So this is the most complex of the plays when it comes to the work that you need to put into it. You could record the audio as a video if you wanted, and then you can play that in the background for yourself while you're then doing the blocking in front of the camera. So then that way you time it out for your own. And then I can then cut out the sound from the blocking video and then add in just the narration over that so we get it more clean. So that's fine. You can do it that way. And then if it's in the brackets and it's italicized, then it means that it's blocking and whatnot. And that's it. That's all you need to know about Dracula. Dracula is the longest of the plays that we're doing as well. This was meant to be a purist play in the sense of I tried taking the book and as much of it as possible translate it over into a play without having to overly dramatize? To make anything overly dramatic in the form of a play or a movie or anything. I tried just taking book and putting it to page for script. So The only thing that I think is in here that I did remove some stuff in order to try to speed it up a little bit as best I could. The only alteration in here is that in the book, Van Helsing goes to the castle before they end up killing Dracula, and he just goes in there, finds the brides of Dracula asleep, and just stakes them, kills them, and it's done with that. I wanted a little bit more action in the scene with them opening up the box of Dracula and fighting him for a little bit. So I included the brides in that moment as part of the battle. So that's it. That's the only alteration that I can really think of where I changed story. Everything else is either just removing a lot of train rides in order to not have characters just sitting there forever, and then removing and doing things like that in order to speed it up a little bit. But that's Dracula, and those are all the plays.